Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
Oh, my God. I'm Phil Proctor. I didn't even know we were on the air.
Well, yeah, that's the theme.
I was turning my phone off, and so was our guest, Kurtwood Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
That 70s show is what he's best known for. But we're going to talk today, Kurtwood, about your career as a journeyman actor and how you got to the point where you finally got on a hit show. You made your career in your life.
Okay.
Because that's kind of the dream of every actor who comes to Hollywood. And we all started from humble beginnings, pursuing the thing that we loved the most, which was being on stage in front of people. By the way, you may now eat the microphone.
I see.
It's been disinfected.
And it wasn't just television. My goodness, you have had a really incredible career.
Incredible list of movies.
Where you have straddled both comedy and drama, which is a specialized art.
I think it is. But I don't think it's as difficult as people think. It was something that I consciously made a decision about wanting to do. I wanted to play a variety of things. The first thing, when I had some success with RoboCop, I thought I'm not going to get typed
as a villain, right?
I didn't mind being a villain. They're interesting. It's being a psycho villain,
Okay.
Yeah, you were particularly nasty.
Yeah, and I turned a few things down and looked for things, like, for example, the Dead Poets Society. The father in that is considered the heavy, the bad guy, but he is really just a guy that's looking for the best for his son. Mm-hmm. But he's seeing it only from his viewpoint. He's trying to prepare his son for the world that he grew up in, as opposed to the world that the son was going to be approaching. And in a way, that's true of the character of Red in the 70s show as well.
That's true.
That's why he's always on his son's ass about this and that, but he forgets, that he's not going to have to go into World War II.
And it made him human. Now you're talking about World War II. I read in one of the blurbs about you that your dad was a brave soldier. You must have just memorialized him over the weekend.
Yeah,
and died when he was coming back from combat.
No, he was in combat.
He was in combat when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes, he was a pilot. He flew. Paratroopers, basically.
Wow.
And so they were, it was called, I can't
Operation Alzheimer's?
That's it. No, that's me.
No, that's me.
Anyway, he was the lead plane, he and the commander of the whole outfit. And they got hit with flak. They stayed with the plane instead of parachuting out because they had to keep the plane level so that the paratroopers could get out. Right. And by the time everybody was out of the plane, it was too late and they went down.
Oh, man. Wow. Where was this, in the European theater? Or
yeah. Berlin.
Man.
Yeah. Germany.
So your dad was in the theater too?
Nice.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. But, of course, I never knew him. He never saw me.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing that kills me the most is that he was, after the success that he had as somebody in the Army, I mean, he was a major and he was leading this whole operation, and he was 22 years old.
I know. It always is astonishing to think how young.
But he never even had a chance to have a career.
That's right.
Wow.
But I had a stepdad who was a great guy, and so, I was fortunate in that sense. He had a little bit of Red Foreman in him, or I should say Red Foreman has a bit of my stepdad in him.
Yes, that's right.
Why acting?
Why acting? Why acting? That's such a good question, and it actually has to do with the fact that I did not know what I was doing. I was in college, basically flunking out because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, but this is Stanford University, right?
No, that was later.
Oh, okay.
That was grad school. So I just thought, I I thought, that's right. When I was in school, in high school, I took a speech class, and I did pretty well in it. You know, I did tournament speech where you go and you either you're on the debate team or you're reading, stories, that kind of stuff, oral interpretation. I thought, well, I did pretty well at that. I wonder what it would be like to try acting. And so I took an acting class, and it was like, bang.
Yep, that's right.
First scene I did from Golden Boy, I just thought, oh, I can do this.
I can do this.
You know, this is, and I got that reaction. I got that positive reaction. You know, the drama teacher at San Jose State said, you should major in this. And I said,
great.
Why? What would I do with it?
A major like your dad.
Yeah, right.
See?
He said, right.
Strange parallel, huh?
He said, well, maybe you could be an actor or you could teach acting or something. And
which you did do for a while. You taught acting.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up here in California, did you?
Yeah. I was born in Wisconsin, and in a very small town,
Oh.
New Lisbon. Great place to grow up. But when I was about 10, my family moved to California, and they reluctantly took me in with them. And so then I grew up in...
They reluctantly took you?
I'm kidding. And we moved into the San Fernando Valley in the early 50s. It was...
Wow, the halcyon days.
It was great. I mean, the kids on my street were all my age, so you grow up with a network of friends. There were like 5 kids that were my age within a couple of blocks. So all the, baseball on the street, football, and
that was
lots
my
of
upbringing,
orange groves.
Yeah, there were orange groves out there, right across the street. Actually, there were orange groves. I went to Canoga Park High School, which now looks like an institution, but back then it was it had all pillars in the front, like some sort of college. But it was fun. It was,
And what's the origin of your first name, Kurtwood? Is that a family name?
Oh, that's entirely my mother. She liked the name Kurt. She just thought Kurt Smith was too short.
To Kurt?
Yes, to Kurt,
right.
so to speak.
Right.
So she just tacked on the Kurtwood. And I always thought it was because she went on her honeymoon in a place called Kurtwood, Louisiana, which is where an uncle of mine had a ranch. But she wouldn't admit to that. But I think that's what influenced her. No one ever called me Kurtwood.
I'll bet they didn't.
No,
right.
I was
Kurt.
I was Kurt until I was doing theater, and I was in a Shakespeare festival. And one summer we had another Kurt and a Chris and a Kent. People started using my name. I mean, my name was always on the program.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
that's Kurtwood.
Everybody knew my name. They just called me Kurt, and then people started
to
calling
differentiate
me Kurtwood.
you. Right,
Yes,
Kurtwood.
and
Kind of defies a nickname.
yeah, right.
KW.
KW or K-Wood, K-Boy. I've pretty much had them all,
So you knew from school what you wanted to do.
From college, yeah.
Yeah.
Once I started doing it, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And the more I did it, the more I was always successful.
Right.
I mean, in the sense of, if I was in the theater department, I got to play leads. When they invited me to join the Shakespeare Festival, which was after my second year in college, I think, I played leads at the festival. So, I thought, obviously I can do this, and everybody else thinks I can do it as well.
And it felt good, too, didn't it?
Oh, it felt great.
The first time I knew that I had the bug was in grade school. Alan Stevenson School in New York, wonderful private school. And every year they do a Gilbert and Sullivan presentation, which they still do. And it was an all-boys school, and I was a boy soprano. So I played the female leads. I played Pirates of Penzance. I was Mabel, and I was Phyllis in Iolanthe, I think it was. And And the moment that I went out there on the stage before an audience, I felt at home. I just felt in control, and I was having fun, and they were having fun. And it's still the greatest feeling in the world to me.
I absolutely agree with you. I don't think there's anything like it. I get it just as much in a different way.
In film and television?
Film and television, yeah. The great thing, of course, about sitcoms
is you have an audience.
that you have an audience.
That's right.
You know, so it's...
The only time it becomes
much fun.
the only time it becomes difficult is if for somebody's blown a scene and you have to do it over again, you know, and the audience knows that they have to laugh in the same places. You know?
We do it over and over again, but you know they prepare that audience, they warm them up.
Yeah,
and
they become a part of the show, don't they?
Exactly. Once in a while, you have to. Audiences have a tendency to like to go, oh,
yeah,
you know, when something sweet happens.
Yeah.
And more than once we had to say, we're going to shoot this again, and let's not do that. Okay? It's great doing sitcoms.
Now, we were having lunch before the show, which we do with all of our guests. And thank you for picking up the tab. and you were telling us how you got that job on that which changed your life, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
On the 70s show.
Yes, I would. On the 70s show.
Yeah.
I was in New Orleans shooting a pilot that I was a guest star on.
By the way, when you're flying anywhere, you should never say to anybody, "I'm going to shoot a pilot." Just wanted to warn you.
Right.
Okay.
So we were filming a pilot, and
that's better.
it was not a show that I would have continued with. I was only in the pilot.
Yeah. Was it a straight part or was it a comic role?
No, I was a heavy.
I
was a cop, but I was a heavy cop. No, I was a bad guy, and also a policeman.
Okay.
So I had a scene that I was going to be shooting on Sunday night on a big riverboat thing on the Mississippi.
Yeah.
They said, okay, here's what's going to happen. Now they found out that you're the bad guy, so we want you to hop off the riverboat here. See that little boat down there?
Uh-oh.
So kind of scurry down there, get on the boat, and then take off. I said, oh, okay. And they said, now here's the thing, Kurtwood. Because we're looking down, there's no way that we can put like a stuntman in there or a double or anything for you, so you're going to have to do it yourself. And, the other thing is, we have some people over there and stuff, but I'm just going to be honest with you. The current here is so bad that if you tip over, you'll be gone. Okay.
Okay.
Let's
roll it.
Let's roll it.
And this is for a pilot.
Yeah.
Riverboat pilot.
So, fortunately, the scene worked out. But my agents had called like the Friday before. They sent me the script, which I read, and I thought it was very funny. But they said, you have to read for it on Monday. And I said, Monday? I said, I'm shooting Sunday night, then I'm going to get on a plane and go and read. That's just not going to work. I said, so I'll have to pass. I came back to town then a couple days later, and they said, hey, they still haven't cast that part.
Lucky.
You want to go in? I said, oh, yeah, sure. So I went in, and then they had me come back and blah, 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 and I ended up getting the part. And then I found out much later that the casting director, Mark Hirschfeld, wonderful guy.
I do remember him.
He was always trying to put me in comedies. And he was convinced that I was right for this part. So he talked them into waiting for me.
Oh, that's
said, he'll
great.
be here in a couple days. Can we just, and they did, and there I was. So.
Oh, that's great.
In RoboCop, you're pretty formidable. I really enjoyed you in Citizen Ruth.
Citizen Ruth.
Yeah.
Because you were this pious. You were just so unlikable.
Yeah.
Oh, you were
Mary Kay Place and I were the head of the Baby Savers.
That's right. It was a little cult group.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Ruth was Laura Dern, and she was a huffer. She would huff, where they spray paint and stuff like that into a bag.
Oh, she was a huffer
Yeah.
to get high, right?
To get hot. So we stumble upon her, and she's pregnant, and we decided to help her. So she'll have the baby as opposed to having an abortion, because there are other people that are trying to talk her into doing that. She's an addict living on this street. So all of a sudden she's in our house, and it was Alexander Payne's first film. It was
Great,
just
great.
a wonderful
Yeah.
experience.
He was a director.
She's this anti-hero. She's like the center of this huge moral controversy, when in fact she herself has very little of.
Yeah, it's a very
that.
interesting film, really.
Yeah.
And I understand it was also Kenny Marr's last film.
Was it his last film?
It was his last film.
Oh.
And did you
What a
work with
won-
Kenny? You have any scenes with him? Or did you get to know him on the shoot?
Yeah, I got to know him. I can't remember if I had scenes with him.
But you know what a
I
wonderful
knew him.
person.
Oh, just a sweet
was,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was a very good friend.
Yeah. Oh, was he? Oh.
Yeah. We did a lot of industrial work together when I first came out to Los Angeles.
Sure, yeah.
And he used to come with his old dog Beezer, who would sit in the studio and fart. and that's how I first got to know him. And of course, he was a hero of mine from the producers.
Sure.
Where, he played
absolutely.
the Nazi
Yeah, he played the
playwright.
Yeah.
So
Hilarious.
anyway, I'm glad you had a chance
Oh,
to get
yeah.
to know
He
him.
was,
And you also
he was
worked with our friend MC Gainey.
MC Gainey.
Yeah, he's been on our
But I
show,
knew Gainey
yeah.
before that. I've known Gainey since the 80s.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Back there. Back when he and Troy Evans were living on Clump Avenue there in North Hollywood.
How appropriate.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah.
When you're playing the darker characters, like in RoboCop, you really conjure that truly frightening sort of evil in you.
Yeah, where do you get
Where
that?
do you get it? Where do you dig in for that?
It's just fun. It's really what it is.
It's fun to be evil.
It's
right?
fun to be evil. And I discovered that the more you enjoy doing something that frightens other people, the more frightening you are.
Oh,
So I just basically had a ball. We all, the whole gang, all our little gang of bad guys, we all kind of hung out together, and we just had fun.
Well, it sure shows. But I have to tell you a story about RoboCop. I'm a member of the Writers Guild Film Society. I've been for decades. And I went to see RoboCop at a screening at the Writers Guild Theater, and I walked out on it. And you know why I walked out on it? Because there was too much peripheral damage. They were killing extras. They were killing innocent people during that movie, just like innocent bystanders. And I said, this is not right.
So you drew a line.
I drew a line. I said, I can't watch this slaughter because of the plot of the movie. I can't watch the death of all these innocent people.
Kurt, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Too bad you missed a good movie.
I caught up with it later. Well, I suppressed my moral outrage and watched it again. But yes, it was a good movie.
Yeah.
You probably don't have an either or, but comedy versus evil?
I like them both.
Yeah, I bet.
It's great fun. It's mostly been comedy for the last. Oh, wait a minute. That's not necessarily.
You had a
true.
laughable career. Huh?
Let me see. I think no, he was just kind of a straight lawyer, but I considered him funny. In the Dropout, I had a lot of fun on that, but he was pretty straight.
Dropout was on Hulu.
Yeah.
Do you have in your spirit, in your mind, a kind of a feeling of progression of all the roles that you've done? I'm trying to think about my own feelings about this, and I kind of have, a recollection of the path that I've taken and the kind of roles that I've had. And do you have that kind of sense, or is everything like a new challenge, and you just jump into it?
Yeah, I think it varies depending on the part. There are some parts that
you can draw upon a past experience.
Yes, that you draw upon a past experience, or others. Sometimes you get a part and you go, I know this. I know this guy. This guy's great, and this is the way it's going to be, and you just show up and start working with the other person, and then find that maybe things change. The other
that's right.
actors that you're working with. Always have to leave yourself open to the people that you're working with.
Now, in terms of the extraordinary experience that you've had on both stage and screen and TV, how do you feel about the transition from one of those kinds of roles to another? Because the demands of a film are often very different from those of stage production, and certainly different from a sitcom where you have an audience.
Yeah, they are different, but they're all basically the same. You still have that nut. You still have that kernel, which is the character, and the rest of it is just, as you would play the character in being in a different sort of state. If he's on Mississippi or if he's in California, he's different. Okay, well, it's the same way if you're on stage, or there are adjustments that you make. And not just in terms of how loud or how big your expressions are or anything like that, but you just, for me anyway, I just play the moments. And I spend most. I read the script a bunch of times. I have ideas about the character. But as I said before, there's so much, the director is going to say, hey, how about this? How about that?
Right.
And then the other actors are going to change how,
That's right. That's right. Well, that I think that's to me the freedom of working in the film medium, as opposed to the others, where you're basically repeating yourself, with variations, of course. But in the film medium, you honestly can take a different tack on a scene, right?
Absolutely.
As long as you're faithful to the character.
Yep.
And I always found that to be very stimulating.
Yeah, me too. I found it very exciting. But as far as when you were talking about progression. I think that maybe some of my work was probably from, a few years ago when I did a show called Patriot that was on Amazon. Steve Conrad created the show, wrote and directed it, and it was a great show. We only got a couple of seasons, again, because nobody quite knew what to do with it, I guess. But the people who saw it have really, really loved it, and I think that in a lot of ways it was my best work. So.
Do you look at your work? Do you watch what you've done?
Yes, I always watch it once. I feel, although there are a few things that I never saw, but I always watch it at least once just to see how
you got
close it was to what I thought I was doing.
Yeah, right. Did I get it right?
And then I
discomfort, or is it just a lack of interest?
I get too picky. I start picking at it, and then pretty soon I don't like it, and then I don't.
I could have done that.
Yeah, I could have done that. I could have done this. And then pretty soon.
Or why did the director
then you go into your
that?
next project, and you're not as secure because you didn't like what you just did.
Yeah, so that's not good.
Yeah.
No.
So I watch it once, and then I will see scenes. You're going to have to, because they want you to pick it for a reel, or they show it while you're being interviewed. All of a sudden, you're watching a scene.
That's right.
So I end up seeing the scenes themselves, but generally, I watch the film or the TV show once.
Who are your favorite people to work with?
Whoa,
I know it's a tough one.
That is really tough.
So many people.
Well, a friend of mine actually is coming into town today, and so I'm going to be seeing him later. An actor named Terry O'Quinn. We did this show called Patriot, and then another show written by the same guy, Steve Conrad, and that was Perpetual Grace Limited. Which was great fun. And in both of them, I worked a lot with Terry. And Steve saw that Terry and I worked well together, so he started writing more and more scenes.
Nice.
And so it kind of worked that way. But he was great to work with.
it's because of the sense of family that we get from the work that we do. That's another thing that is so satisfying about it.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're doing a theatrical piece, because then you're really are hanging out in the dressing room with everybody, and you're going through all the changes that everybody's going through simultaneously, as opposed to a movie where you're sitting in your trailer until they call you out, and you do your scene. You're not always working with everybody in the film.
That's right.
But that the sense of family under all those circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, the people I'm mentioning, are people I worked with on a series.
That's right.
So that you're working with them like,
it combines
day in and day out.
It combines the feeling of
months.
theater
with
it. I remember when I did my first soap opera, the feeling that I got from it was like doing an acting exercise, every day. You get a script and you have to look at it and you have to learn it and then you do it and then goodbye and wait until your next appearance. But that was the fun of it.
Yeah.
Coming together with somebody who you already knew and had worked with and doing a little exercise that was reaching, going out into the whole nation. It was really fun.
Obviously, you have to get along with the director on whatever it is that you're working, but your credits are so vast. There has to be some circumstances where you came in with an idea of who you were going to be, and the director was polar opposite. Not quite,
not quite polar opposite, but also,
or maybe polar opposite's a little extreme.
Yeah. I remember working once with a director, and it was a big movie, and I was playing a villain.
What a surprise!
I was playing the head of the Klan.
And, yes, right. I
had
saw
a nice
that.
scene with Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, and so we did it, and I said, "So let me ask you something. I'd like to try this, instead of being quite as slimy as I've been here, I'd like to try it, trying to make him kind of a regular guy, and in hopes that then, seeing a regular guy as the head of the class, kind of more frightening." And
People
he was like,
identify
"Yeah, okay. Well, let's do it my way first, and then we'll do it yours." And I said, Okay. So I did what he wanted, and then he said, "Girls, we're in the wrong place," which was his way of telling the crew we're moving on. And everybody went, and I went, "You."
Oh,
and,
son of a gun.
Yeah, and so.
But you did remind me.
I didn't care for that.
You did remind me of the one thing that we did do together, but apart, was I added voices to 24.
Oh, 24.
Right?
Yeah.
And you were in the last season of that, right?
This was not a 24 story.
No, it wasn't, but it reminded me, because you said Sutherland, didn't?
Yeah.
But who was it? Who was the star of that show? It was Carradine, wasn't it? Who was the star of 24?
Kiefer.
Kiefer, yeah, it was Kiefer.
It was Kiefer, yeah.
Kiefer, yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's a Kiefer, right.
Yeah. He was great.
So we have worked together.
Yeah.
I probably breathed for you or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yes, I was doing that, and I came on. I had kind of a nice arc, and then I had shot a pilot, and different pilot.
Right.
It got picked up while I was working on 24.
Oh, boy.
So I said, hey, they knew that possibility was there from the beginning. It wasn't like I was throwing them any curveballs, but they said, "Oh, okay, we'll kill you. We'll kill you." I said, "Okay." So 2 days later, I opened the door and somebody shot me in the face.
I've been there.
Yeah.
But wasn't there another show where you came back as a ghost?
Oh yeah, Medium.
Medium.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I love that. That was great fun.
Yeah, well, when I was doing my first soap opera, which was The Edge of Night back in the 60s, right after I got out of Yale, I was playing Julie Kurtz. I was playing a juvenile delinquent. In those days, all the bad kids had kind of soft names, and all the girls had hard names. Cookie Pollock was my girlfriend, and I was Julie Kurtz. Okay? I was a bad guy. So after I'd done a couple of months of it, a writer came up to me and said, "We got a storyline for you, Phil." I said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "You're going to be murdered." Oh, really? But he said, don't worry, you'll come back in the flashbacks during the trial scenes. So I know what it feels like.
Yeah. I just have to say I've had a very fortunate life.
You
and
sure have.
I've just had a very fortunate career. It's been great.
Yeah.
I've got to meet wonderful people and work with wonderful people.
Isn't that terrific?
Yeah.
Plus an entire career in animation, in voiceover work. Too.
Yeah, and that's great fun.
Monsters at Work, F is for Family, Pig, Goat, Banana, Cricket, Rick and Morty,
Rick and
Green
Morty.
Lantern, Beware the Batman, Neighbors from Hell, Squirrel Boy, and
That's
the
a little
Zeta
too close
Project.
to life, I'm afraid.
And 2 days ago, let me see, I did The Simpsons.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was fun.
Did you play yourself or?
No, I wish I had. It's funny. They did put me in a cartoon, and somebody else did me.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was really weird. It had to do with people with big heads, and
Yeah, I did notice that you're kind of straining the earphones a little bit.
right. And they said, and Chris Matthews was supposedly having this whole show about people with big heads. And he said, and now we're going to big-headed actor Kurtwood Smith in Hollywood. I thought it was hilarious. But
That's just wonderful that your career is continuing with strength. Now, what's happening to our poor business?
it's really, really sad.
Isn't it, though?
I find it very depressing.
Yep.
And not, as I was just saying, I've been very fortunate. I've had a good career and all that. But there are so many people out there. I mean, just think about the fact that every time you watch a movie or a TV show, or if you stick around and watch the credits, which you should, all of those names on
names,
those are
thousands.
all people. Those are all the people it took to make a movie.
That's right.
And when you're not making movies, what are all
they
those
doing?
people doing?
That's
you
right.
know, it's just, and as an actor who's been around for a while, I get paid pretty well, but a lot of people work, paycheck to paycheck.
That's right.
Like most
Project to project,
most of us
paycheck
do.
to paycheck.
And so there's been a lot of people really hurt by it, and I don't have the answer other than, hey, come on, guys, make the damn movies here,
Make them here.
But things are so decentralized now.
Oh, yeah,
With
that's true.
not only technology but the tax schemes.
Yeah,
I think California is trying to come back to the table with like a $700 million credit.
that's what I hear.
Was that one of the John Voight?
No.
No, but the Trump Patrol people. No.
John Voight used to always call me
What do you mean they always call you?
because my business line was the same number as Tom Hanks' internal line at Playtone. And I didn't know this, but I would pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And it was like whatever the current studio head at Sony was, so-and-so for Tom. I was like, who the hell's Tom? I'm Ted. And I said, I don't think you're... And sure enough, John Voight called.
Wow.
He was very kind, and he wanted to have a conversation with me.
Oh, good.
And I said, and we had this lovely conversation, and I said, good luck, and remember, I had a mutual friend of Tom Hanks who explained why this happened.
Yeah.
Everybody
that's
thought they
wild.
day could dial Tom directly by dialing the extension that happened to be my phone number.
Your phone number.
And and John called me back like a day later, having forgotten the whole thing. Hey, John, wait, John,
Wait a minute,
it's
wait,
Ted.
no.
He said, oh, hey, Ted.
John and I shared the role of Rolf the Singing Nazi in The Sound of Music
Oh yeah.
on Broadway. Yeah. Yeah. So I've had a nice conversation.
Very nice. I told him, I said, please tell Tom that he's lucky I'm a nice guy because I could have made deals on deals.
Peter Bergman used to get calls for Peter Bergman, the soap opera star.
Sure.
Okay. And I remember what Peter would do was he'd say, so they want you to open a supermarket in New Lesbian, Wisconsin, right? And Peter would say, sure. All right.
Did he really?
Yeah. Contact my people. Well, Bergman was a mischief maker.
Yes, he was.
Always. But anyway, it's still fun to be connected to people like that in any bizarre way.
This weekend, you and I went to the Writers Guild to see Mission Impossible.
Yes.
And Lilo...
My ears are still ringing.
Oh, my God, was that loud.
Woo!
Talk about end roll credits.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Forever. Credits
I can
impossible.
imagine.
Credits impossible. But interestingly, Lilo and Stitch,
Yeah.
which was on
Before it, which I didn't get to see.
Did you notice the returns in the box office?
Did it?
Yeah, it
No, I didn't.
boxed
Okay.
off.
Impossible was 70 million. And
Lilo and Stitch was 147.
yeah,
or something like that.
168.
It outboxed Mission
Whoa.
Impossible.
So that's the world in transition, right?
I guess.
Animated characters. But, I mean, Impossible is an old franchise. I mean, right? I mean, you
Yeah, the film is really kind of a parody of all of the franchise because everything was impossible.
Yeah.
And with kind of a tongue-in-cheek in a way. And yet it was very entertaining. And it was $400,000 budget, I understand.
400 million.
For $1 million, I beg your pardon, million.
Yeah.
What world am I living in? And it was all on the screen. It was all there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the sequences, the biplane sequence with Tom Cruise hanging on for his life while the villain is doing loop-de-loops
Yeah.
was amazing.
I think that's the worth. If you can go, sneak in and see the last 15 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's all you need.
That's all you
yeah.
need.
And I don't know about Lilo and Stitch,
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it, but
but that's
it'll
the
be
world
right.
we're in, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's been that way for a while, hasn't it? You know, I think that we all kind of hope that streaming. I felt that when streaming started, you know, starting with Netflix and Amazon, I guess. This
Phenomenon.
was great, you
Yep.
know, because it allowed they were trying to do things that you couldn't do or that they didn't want to do on regular television.
True.
And you know, giving young or new writers a chance, and the whole
new
idea
actors.
of taking novels essentially instead of short stories. You know, a film is really a short story compared to, you know, a series, which is more like a novel. And it was very exciting. And then all of a sudden, it seems to me that they were hiring people that had worked at, you know, the major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS. And so all of a sudden, things started changing, and, you know, we were, you know, interesting new things weren't being done as much.
Right. For a mass
Now
audience.
what's happened, it seems that they're buying foreign series and showing those, and so kind of out in the street.
and it's also certainly a chilling time editorially. I mean, people aren't going to take a lot of chances in the theater right now because we see the major studio owners capitulating to political pressure in the name of the dollar on mergers. And so maybe eventually it will have a wonderful effect, but now we're kind of in the nadir of...
Yeah.
We're in a sense of limbo right now.
Yeah.
And of course, having seen, I just saw, my daughter Kristen showed me, what is it called, the new AI?
Evo 3, Google's...
It's like you give them an idea. There's this one extraordinary example. An old man, an old grizzled sailor, you know, with a pipe, with the sea behind him, saying these lines about the sea, and it looks absolutely real. Places
it's called
everything.
it's part of the umbrella program, AI program Gemini, which is Google's approach to AI. There's several different companies, OpenAI,
It's astonishing.
Grok, Microsoft, but Google just rolled this out last week. And you can see it on YouTube, and it's worth seeing the presentation.
It is, but
they have a number of different
terrifying.
sub-programs. One of them is called Evo 3, and that is this motion image generation, and another thing called Flow, which will actually build stories for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
They'll make a movie based
it's-
on what you
sure
say.
it's
But, and it's animated or
yeah it's
AI.
it's image generated
Computer
so you could
generated.
say animated, but
but
essentially
it looks like it.
yeah it's
Like-
hyper realistic.
Yeah. And they have these characters, a girl and a guy talking to one another
Mm-hmm.
about, hey, we're talking to one another. And it's like it reminded me of like the jazz singer. Suddenly you're hearing sound for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the joke that they're playing with.
Well, it generates sound effects and
So
sound
weird.
design
Yes.
with the images.
Yes.
It's exceptional stuff, but it's going to lower the bar generally. And I think people are
Yeah.
going to grow into this medium with lower standards. Maybe that will usher in a renaissance in live action. I don't know.
It sounds awful.
It's
It is awful. And at the same time, it's amazing. Replaced by the
Yeah.
robots,
you ever hear of a Adam Curtis documentarian?
No, I've heard of Adam because he's the first man.
Yeah.
It's a real person.
Yes,
Adam
this is a real
Curtis.
person. He did a
I don't know anymore.
He did a documentary that the BBC aired called Hypernormalism.
Yes, I've been watching it.
Hypernormalism. I would recommend to our listener out there to check it out on YouTube because he talks about how
reality
reality is being
manipulated.
fundamentally shifted.
Yes.
Fundamentally
For
shifted.
political and cultural purposes.
And how this flooding the zone in politics that's going on is intentional to disorient and destabilize people.
And this was before AI.
It's really an interesting thesis, and he brings in all sorts of examples of hypernormalization that includes illustrations of it, like the UFO phenomena,
Yeah.
which is genuine.
Yep.
They are genuinely capturing unknown things. On the other hand, it is ripe for manipulation and thought creation.
Well, his
when
premise
you string
was,
a narrative to
his
it.
premise was that when the Army was developing new forms of aircraft,
Yeah.
and people were seeing them, they wrote it off as UFOs.
Disinformation.
Disinformation campaign that these were UFOs. Your lovely wife Joan is a Firesign Theater fan,
Yes.
and it was a Firesign Theater that asked, I think in our second album, what is reality? We were hip to it. We were going,
Yeah.
wait a minute. On the other hand,
Yeah.
my friend Larry Hankin, who's been on our show also,
Oh, yeah, sure.
Larry was just in a movie called The iPhone Movie, okay, which is a short film that this fellow made using just his iPhone
Yeah.
because you don't need any lighting.
Yeah.
He said there was a woman was operating the camera, the iPhone, and it was all on locations with natural lighting, which allows, I'm holding a studio in my hand.
That you really,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So there is an upside to it about a certain kind of new freedom.
But it is definitely straining the system that we have in place that is almost outdated now, the studio system, the
Yep.
television system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think what you began with, addressing how all these people are displaced, is just a symptom of this much larger shift.
Right.
So
And
what's
it
to become
doesn't
of
sound.
us?
Yeah, it doesn't sound as though that is going to help any of those people.
No,
It's just going to.
not necessarily.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you could probably, if you wanted to, you could sign up and have your voice print, and your voice and your image fully recorded, and then you could go forward even after you die,
I'm gone.
after you're gone,
Just
and
keep
still
making
generate
movies.
revenue for somebody.
Legacy of Kurtwood Smith. Kurtwood lives on.
We're waiting for our first guest like that.
You're a ghost.
I've already done that.
Been there, done that, right?
Joan might be excited to hear about this, but
Yeah.
might help her.
Is your wife in the business, in the industry?
She was.
Yeah.
When we first came to town, she did a lot of it, but she quit doing that. She is a healthcare activist. She's the president of an organization.
Oh, boy. She
Yeah.
must be very challenged right now.
Yeah. Well, they're basically, trying to keep an eye on healthcare legislation,
Yep.
either promoting it or discouraging it, depending.
Well, we don't need vaccines anymore. Did you hear that today?
Yeah, I know. No
Well,
more
you
COVID
and I
boosters.
do. We all do. We
Oh,
were
is
at a
this
certain
right?
age. But
I was boosting COVID boosters, and I guess I can't do that anymore.
interesting times. You're talking about the industry as you knew it has changed significantly.
Oh, absolutely.
But this has sort of always been the way, because when you think of the Hollywood in the 40s or in the 50s, it's the same amount of time now. Where Hollywood in the 70s, Hollywood was much different than it was in the 40s. That's only a 30-year difference, right? And then, but it was down and out, and that's why we had some of the best movies ever made, because it was a free for all, right? It was the new film movement, right? The Coppolas and the Scorseses and the Lucases coming out.
I hate people being replaced by machines.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, we're talking to Kurtwood Smith, who is certainly not a machine.
Not a machine.
You working on anything now? Or is there something you want to do, or things you haven't done that you want to do?
There's, I always want to do whatever. There are a couple of things that I'm working on with a writer, and so trying to develop. We'll see. It's a lot harder now than it used to be, I think.
And what kind of medium are you thinking of expressing yourself in?
This we're talking about would be a series. Television series.
Television or cable or something? TV, yeah.
Or streaming. Yeah,
or streaming.
Yeah. It would, not network television.
Good. Yeah. Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Have you done an audio drama, Kurtwood?
Have I done what?
Audio drama?
I did something like that for a theater that Deborah Joe belongs to back east. But otherwise, no.
Oh,
really?
You got something?
So there is actually an area you haven't appeared in yet.
You have
We have to do something about that. And obviously you can do character voices because you've done all the cartoon work. Right?
Yes, I can do all kinds of funny voices.
Hey, now, isn't it wonderful?
But they never, when I get these animated jobs, what they always want me to do, they want me as the mad yelling dad.
Oh dear. Typecast even in that.
What would your favorite piece be? Somebody was going to go out and say, I want to see something Kurtwood did.
Oh, boy.
That's a tough question.
I'm not sure.
That's tough.
Citizen Ruth. Love Citizen
Ruth. Patriot and...
RoboCop.
RoboCop.
Yeah, definitely that. Which I've saw recently for a couple of reasons. I mean, they've been honoring that movie lately.
It's been absolutely wonderful talking with you.
Oh, well, this has been great.
Kurtwood Smith, legendary actor.
Villain, comedian. Wonderful.
Thank you. This is a real pleasure.
All right, my dear friends.
I'm Ted Bonnet.
I'm Phil Proctor.
I'm Kurtwood Smith.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye.